Alrighty, hello and welcome to the CREEDCAST for round two review. We're here to review Port Adelaide snagging another 4 points, 2-0 on the season now. With a win, 18 goals, 14, 122 to 13 goals, 14, 92 over the Richmond Tigers. A game that is really funny in the sense that we kind of, and in our brief preview at the end of last week's episode, we talked about the game and kind of said what our rough margin would be, and it kind of ended up there. But as per usual, it comes with all sorts of storylines and just little particulars about a football match that you can never quite predict. So my partner in crime, as per usual, Jamie's on the other end of the Pacific pond, ready to chat about it. And yeah, it's no shortage of storylines, even though it kind of went the way we expected it to go.
No, it's a powder keg of emotions. G'day, everyone.
Yeah.
Hello, Dave. Yeah, yeah. Until Ken Hinkley's out the door, yeah,
Right.
every minute of every game will be under the
But
microscope, in different sections of our fan base. So yeah, and hey, it was a game of two halves from our perspective, and the emotions carried along with that.
yeah, and in the weed, like once you sift through the weeds of online discourse and all that stuff, and there is, as we always say, like I always we'll have a little laugh about some of the ridiculousness of it, but there is always some truth to every bit of discourse. It's just how deep they go into their overreaction for it
Yeah,
is the question. But you know, it was the goal kicking was a focus early, and Jay Shields probably had 50 notifications at one point, and that's just
yeah. Another few
nature
thousand
of
followers.
yeah. um, but for me, early on, just looking at the early stages of the game, I mean, the first quarter we were pretty dominant, but our finishing did let us down. But the second quarter, you know, the reason we were down at halftime for me was not so much the goal kicking; it was actually application in the second quarter, and kind of just we let our standards slip a little bit, which is usually the case with Port Adelaide footy. Actually, is when our standards drop as far as our around the game, around the ground, contested footy, which is all we never smash the contested ball. Usually, it's we're often, I think we lost the contested ball by -7 in this game at the end of the game actually. So it's not always a strong suit of our game, but it's when it's usually if we're battling away at about even, then we're fine. But if we let the standards slip a little bit, that's kind of what I thought was the problem, and the reason we were down by a couple of goals at halftime. Really, not so much the finishing was a factor in it, but it's not all of it, which is what probably I have a problem with the online discourse. Is like there's a few other things at play usually, rather than
Yeah.
just one particular thing.
AFL is multifaceted at
Yeah,
every step of the way.
it's a
Yeah.
360-degree game. Like it's coming at you from all angles, and yeah. But yeah, that first half it wasn't pretty. We'll put it out that way. But it was also, Richmond were a team, and this is to give Richmond some credit. They were a team. They might be a bottom four team this year at the end of the year. Who knows? They're 0-3 now, but they haven't been beaten the shit out of in any game. Like, I mean, they almost beat Carlton, who could be a top four team at the end of the year. We don't know. They almost beat them last week. In the first round, they weren't terrible either. So they're they're not. They might be just one of those teams that's bad, but they can be plucky and Dustin Martin and Shy Bolton were linking up for a few little
Hmm.
tasty little sequences of play. They've got talent through They're just not the team they were. So we kind of had to figure our way through that as well. So that first half was like just a bit of a battle of wills. I think a little bit like a plucky team trying to you know punch up to a decent team that was probably trying to figure out how to a team that knows they're better than another team and just trying to exert their influence is always a real intriguing battle of of mindsets, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm glad you brought up the fact that, yeah, they might be a bottom four side, but they've still got a healthy group of star talent and their spine is still relatively healthy. Uh, like this is a professional competition, and with that star power, and we called it a little bit last week in our prediction. is that in the end, we probably on paper looks like we had a fairly comfortable win, but in reality, it probably wasn't going to be that comfortable. And that, I mean, I said I'd be happy with a 4-goal win, and I expected a 4-goal win. Anything above that would be a nice bonus personally. And in the end, we run out 5-goal victors. So yeah, Richmond, they'll beat some sides that you don't expect that they'll beat at some stages this year, because they're purely for their group of, they've still got a group of premiership players in there who offer invaluable leadership and star power, which came to the fore, particularly in the first half. I thought we were a little bit like we didn't pay Richmond enough respect early on. Although, and to say that, we did dominate the first quarter. And our goal kicking was terrible. Sure, we had some of those longer shots, which we discussed out the back of the West Coast game, but we got some much better looks early in this game in the first quarter than we did against West Coast in the first quarter and throughout the West Coast game, which we didn't convert, which was frustrating. You know, you don't want to continually make excuses for poor conversion, but it was there for all to see. And yeah, sure, we could have been 4 or 5 goals up at the quarter time break, but we weren't. And off the back of that first quarter, we were playing an aggressive forward press, which we got exposed on the other end on multiple occasions, which just kept them hanging about and kept their arousal levels in a decent spot right up until half time. That forward press is something that we spoke about in our pre-season episodes about one to watch for us. And look, every club would be practicing different strategies throughout the off season and putting things in place that they want to try. And they're going to try it early in the season. Now, again, I'm a nuffy that sits in the Eastern Stand of Adelaide Oval every 2 weeks. So if you ask me what those minor changes or whatnot that they would have or would not have practiced and trying to implement now, I probably couldn't tell you. It still looks like we're playing the aggressive forward press, but who knows? It's round 2. You're not going to not change, improve your strategy throughout the off season. You're not going to not put that into practice in the early rounds of a football season. So I would imagine that there's a bit of that going on, but I think that we did lack a bit of respect for Richmond by being so aggressive, and probably expected ourselves and particularly our midfield to have a lot more contest than they did. And alternatively, rebounding from the defensive 50, probably do it in a more smart fashion than what they did. And someone in the commentary, I can't remember who it was, it might have been Jordan Lewis actually, he mentioned that we were trying to just kick our way out of trouble from the D50, and in some passages of play, it would have just been better to build it up a bit more methodically using handball and slow it down just a fraction, just to pick our way through it. But it was almost like our inaccuracy in front of goal kind of got us spooked, and how they rebounded, Richmond, how they rebounded off the back of that spooked us a little bit. Because for all people say about our predictable forward 50 entries, I thought we were actually lowering the eyes fairly well in that first quarter. We just didn't convert. And then for a period of time between maybe halfway through the first quarter, 3/4 of the way through the first quarter up until half time, we just kind of blazed away. We were trying to get it. We're trying to force ourselves ahead of the game a little bit. So that lack of respect and just some just a bit of a lack of presence of mind meant that guys like Shai Bolter, even Tim Taranto had a decent first half, particularly second quarter. Sure, they had players out, but like I've said several times now, they've got enough star power to keep them there and thereabouts, especially at their home ground. So while the first half was quite alarming, quite frustrating, it was good that there is 4 quarters of football and we turned it around in the second half. And I will note that the turnaround came from accurate. kicking in the second half.
Hmm.
When we needed to do it, we did. And our game, on top of the midfield kind of turning it up a little bit, they're a little unaccountable in the first half. And those two things marrying together just meant that we were going to pull away. And although challenged again, we responded and pulled away when it was necessary. So good that we are getting these kind of challenges early in the season.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, like we spoke about last week, it's a scary prospect once we, and hopefully we do, put it all together. Looking ahead in the fixture.
Yeah. Yeah, the goal kick, the conversion in the second half was actually really something I wanted to know. And I had the conversation, like a slight disagreement, a very respectable one with I think AFL, some account on Twitter last night. He kind of was very just like, what's the point of being positive about how we responded until, it's September? And I kind of made the point. It was more of a philosophical point that like I like for me
People
and
hate that.
yeah, we've talked about it. You and I have both talked about it. It's just not like just for our own mental health. If anything, it's not worth being this angry about footy in round. Like you can be critical, but like also I like to enjoy the good things that happen in a game as well. And that was well,
Yeah.
I said like I was like, there's you absolutely be critical, but also be positive about how we responded. Which his point was like, who cares about how we responded? We should be winning. I was just like, hey, look, you do you, I'll do me. Um, but I was really happy with Harry because I think I made a note in my notes that we were 4 goals 9, like halfway through the second quarter, I think. And from that point on, we kicked 14 goals 5 to close out the game and win by 30 points. From late in the second quarter when we were 3 goals down, it ends up being
Yeah.
a 48-point turnaround from that point. So all those kind of, when you look at it that way, you go, geez, that's pretty good turnaround against, again, the negative side of the criticism is we should be winning, but that's not kind of how if you watch sports around the world, there are
It's not how
teams,
sport works.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's Liverpool and Manchester City, Arsenal at the moment in title races, they've been 1-0 down against shit teams at halftime, time and time again this year. Like I've watched, myself as a Liverpool fan, I've been fucking despondent at halftime of a few games, and we've gone on and won 3 or 4-1. Like it's just the Golden State Warriors in the dynasty had a great weird thing that they do where they'd be 10 points down at the halftime of a basketball game, but you knew that they just fucking light it up in the second half and end up winning by 15 anyway. Um, Sport, and yeah, it would be nice. We'd love to be winning, obviously, and all those things are valid, that the criticisms of those first half, but you also need to enjoy the good parts of it, which is that the way we started that second half was fantastic. I was really, really happy with how we responded because, as you said, we kind of got a little bit away from what we were trying, like the good things that we do, the eyes down. And the first goal of the second half, I think, was Zach Butters' eyes down with one of his little dainty chip kicks into Charlie Dixon, finding
To our
some
boy. Yeah.
yeah, finding some space. And I was really impressed, and I thought I just wanted to make a note of it because I think the first 4 goals of the second half, Charlie Dixon right off the off, Dobbs one from fucking 50. Like he's right on the 50-point line, I think, when he 50-meter line when he kicks that one and sails it through. Then I think Finlayson kicks the next one. Then I think it's Houston, but then it's Marshall when we kick 4 goals in a row in about 5 minutes, and the three forwards all stand up in that moment. And then obviously Marshall
Yeah.
goes on and kicks 4 goals too. I think Finlayson finishes with 3 goals 1. He does blaze one out in the full though. I do have a thing in my head. I'm like I want them to count out in the like I want to see forwards with the
I
out in the
forgot about
fulls.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, because you sometimes forget it. You see 3 goals 1 and go, oh yeah. And then I was watching the replay for the second time, and he has that one where it's that one where the commentators are actually going, shit, he's calling the umpire here. He's given himself an extra, like he's gotten himself
He
three.
had,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, because the guy
Yeah.
on the guy on the mark's kind of standing there like, can you not see this? Because he's like a fucking 2 meters like wide of him,
Oh, it
and
was
then
a
he's
real con job, real
yeah.
real poor umpiring effort. Like take some control.
But then maybe some karma in the fact that goes out
Like
in the full.
get your protractor out. And up
Yeah.
until that point, Finlayson looked in his head.
Mm,
Like he looked in his own head, Finlayson, even though he had chopped off the angle a little bit, lining up
yeah.
for that goal. his body language was pretty poor, to be
Mm.
honest. Sorry to cut you off. Yeah,
No, no, you
I just remembered that period of time as you mentioned it.
Yeah, so I'd love to see just when we're listing, the goal kickers in the stat sheet when they list the 3 goals won. Like I just love maybe a parentheses if you don't even have to put it there if they don't kick one out in the forward, just if they do, just to remind you because it does sometimes warp your perception. Because and I'm actually trying to give him praise because he did kick accurate, but yeah, it should be 3 goals 2 in essence or something like that. Um,
Yeah,
in your own
shots
head, but
attempted
yes,
stat line or
exactly.
something like
Yeah,
that.
because it was a bad miss, but he kicked a couple of nice goals as well, and that might come up later.
Yeah,
But yeah, I was really impressed with how he started the second half, and I think that's something to give some praise to. Is like halftime adjustments in any sport are one of the most important things you can do, and to go into that, they kind of figured out that they were not having a whole lot of luck bombing, as you said, bombing forward into trying to go deep into the forward line, bombing it into the goal square, whatever. So eyes down, look for the guys that are finding space in that 35 to 50 area, and we punch ourselves ahead, 4 goals
hmm
pretty quickly, and almost ran away with it at that point. Richmond punched back towards the end of the third quarter. Just watching the replay again, it was 12 seconds on the clock is when
yeah.
Liam Baker does and fucking PTSD for Jordan Dawson at Adelaide Oval, the way he fucking bent that one back in.
Lucky it
And
was only half time.
yeah, exactly.
I
Um,
rate Liam Baker. I think the competition underrates him, or
yeah,
fans of other clubs, to be honest. Yeah, I'm a bit of a fan. He's a cool, calm, collected player.
mm,
Just another one of those talented bunch that I
yeah.
mentioned before.
And then they get the center clearance a little bit of. I think Soldo kind of gets caught up a little bit there and kind of tries to sell a little bit of being held, but at the center bounce there with 12 seconds to go and doesn't quite get it. And then it's kind of I was a little bit angry the first time because I'd gotten back from the 40th I was at to watch that from about halfway through the third quarter live. So I was watching that point live. I went back and watched the first half after a couple of times. Um, and I was a little bit irate at I'd had a few beers and everything, so I wasn't. But I was watching it back this morning. I was just like, gee, it's just one of those things where just the bounce of the ball, it was just
It
a
did seem that way.
yeah, it was just a perfect sequence of play, and then they get a quick kick into and then Baker has to still go back and slot it from 50. So just a little bit. Again, we got punched in the mouth there a little bit, and then we come out
hmm
at the start of the fourth quarter, and I think it was two. I looked; it was about 2.5 minutes into the fourth quarter. We were back up by 4 goals. Like, so
Yeah,
again, we just were clinical and quite brutal. Like the manner in which we found our way to to put the game away a couple of times, in essence, when we needed to, was again something criticism's valid and all good, but you should also pass that out with some praise for how they responded as well. And I was really impressed with how we managed to find ourselves to a because there are some port games in the past that would have been a game that just ended up being a slogfest to the end, and we end up either winning by 9 points or something like that. But we find our way to a 5 goal win in the end after some pretty Richmond tried to punch back a few times, and they were pretty
yeah.
well worth their effort. So
Chasing their first win,
yeah.
as we spoke about last week, for a new coach at home on a Sunday afternoon. Um, I'm glad you brought up Soldo because I thought his first half was indicative of our first half as a whole.
Mm.
I thought that he started a little bit meek against Nankervis. Again, maybe he was in his head a little bit, but he definitely lowered his colours, particularly in comparison to week one.
Mm.
But I thought he responded quite well and started using his personal attributes to better effect against Nankervis in the second half. And look, as a result, I think the whole team lifted, to be fair. But he did too. He didn't give up. And look, if it was the other way around, if we had a great first half and a shit second half, we'd be hearing about it. Like, it's just the good thing about sport. AFL, there's 4 quarters, there's 2 halves.
Mm.
You can mount a response. I thought something I didn't mention. You mentioned it just then briefly. Is that it just seemed to be a first half where, on top of the aggressive press and things like that, the ball did seem to bounce their way on particular occasions. And look,
Mm.
the Richmond supporters would probably say the same thing about us. But, it just seemed unfortunate, and that's what happens in football.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps we weren't in best of positions to cover that because I guess you do when you're playing a game with an oval ball, you kind of do have to expect the unexpected a little bit.
Mm.
Uh,
It was one
and
of
yeah, it
the
just didn't. We
freaky
seem
things
to
about that game.
also yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we seem to be getting in each other's way sometimes. I noticed, and I just wanted to mention DBJ's game, kicking the 3 goals, very
Mm.
opportune, but also taking some moments. He was all over the ground. He was in the D50 almost just as much as he was in the forward 50 as a medium forward. But there was a couple of times he was in great position in and around stoppage, and I think it was Ollie Wines, maybe on a couple of occasions who got in his way, and as a
Mm.
result, the ball just bounced out of a stoppage straight into a Richmond player's hands,
Yeah,
and
and because they've kind of taken
it,
themselves out of it, like because of that collision, it just like suddenly it's open space for Richmond as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Richmond got their opportunities deep. Well, yeah, Liam Baker had
Mm.
that great shot from 50 at halftime. The difference, I think, overall, particularly in the first half, was that they were getting some deep like shots on goal from
Mm-hmm.
between goal square and 25, 30 meters out, which compounded. I mean, yeah, you want to improve your accuracy, you get it deep, and that's what they did.
Mm.
Um, Easier to get hung up on the first half as well. Like, I think the defensive line definitely absorbed the lion's share of pressure
Mm-hmm.
in the first half, particularly but across the 4 quarters. They took on a great amount of work, and the 3 tools, I guess we're calling them now, had a much more even game, I thought, this time
Mm.
around. Zerk Thatcher's getting a lot of flowers online for the job he did on Leach, and so he deserves, because he was the one that a lot of opposition supporters and whatnot were talking about the reverse Coleman. Excuse me. Tom Lynch got a Joe the Goose in the first minute of the game, and as David King has said on multiple outlets, he wasn't cited for the rest of the game, and Zerk Thatcher did a fantastic job on him. I thought Radicalizia was in and involved with the game a lot
Mm.
earlier this time around, and while I don't think Alir had as good of a game as he did last week against West Coast, he had his moments and he contributed well. A few missed tackles I was a bit disappointed about. But again, what's the balance? What's the right balance? We're still finding that out, I think, with our
Yeah.
defensive line. Um, are you going to sacrifice potentially a Lear sole All Australian standard year if it means him drawing back a little bit to make us a better unit as a whole?
Mm.
Again, it's a it's a wait and see for mine, because it is at the end of the day a bit of a project, and it does look like we're still searching for a bit of synergy in the defensive line, but yeah, across the ground and how it translates from end to end either way.
Mm.
But yeah, the defensive line definitely deserves flowers for their overall good game. They probably had the best 4 quarters out of any line, in my opinion.
Yeah, because it's particularly in that second, I think that second quarter, it was like 10 scoring shots to 3 or 4 or something like that. And they did kind of, I mean, as you said, like when Richmond were getting their opportunities early to score some goals out the back on us, it was when they were getting it deep. But then when the pressure was actually on and we were just burning the ball in midfield and letting it come back in a bit too easily, it was that line, Zerk Thatcher. I was just watching. There was a couple of them, particularly in the second replay I was watching. I was kind of, as best as you can, watch off full movement on the telecast because it's based on whatever they're showing
Yeah,
you.
it's
But
tough.
just watching him chase Lynch was just like he's just like, I'm not letting you fucking go. Like he was on him, and
Yeah, and that's great.
yeah,
Yeah,
because
it's a
that's what
big
you want.
job.
Yeah, and it kind of was reminiscent. I just just of the kind of efforts that Mackenzie's had in the past when he's playing that had to play those kind of roles where he's like just man up and do the best you can, get physical with him a little bit, and And yeah, Lynch was a little bit annoyed with that. There was a couple of guys. I did put the shout out just to see if anyone had any thoughts on the game, and there was a couple of people who obviously responded saying,
Yeah.
BZT.
Thanks for those comments. I saw them today.
Yeah, there's a lot of
That's
good stuff
great.
in there. And yeah, there's yeah, JJ King said yeah, BZT blanketing Lynch. That's all he said. But yeah, there was a couple of comments about about Lynch being a bit of a flog.
In pockets.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah. I
he
think
is.
I think I said yeah, BZT is going to get a surprise when he opens up his washing machine today because he's going to find like Lynch in there because he's just fucking finally tumbled out of the pockets while he's in the cycle. But yeah, a few people mentioned like, and I think like yeah, a few people mentioned Lynch being a bit of a flog, and I was like, you could see he was a little bit annoyed at times during the match, which it's not hard to get under his skin. And I think back to the prelim back in 2020, there was a bit of argy bargy with him and Dersmer, I think, and it just seems like every time we're in a bit of a match with Richmond and Lynch is involved, there's a bit of jump and punching at least.
Yeah. And then after the late hit on Butters,
Yeah,
Butters let him know about it. And I think Lynch was probably trying to give Butsy a bit of shit, but at the end of the day, you were late to the contest and
yeah,
you leave yourself exposed there, you idiot. But
yeah.
and this is the thing about Lynch and the broader Richmond team is the fact that they've gotten away, particularly when Jack Revolt was still playing, they've gotten away with so many pushes in the back that
What?
don't get noticed
Yeah.
in the past. And then just one funny part of the game was how angry the Richmond supporters were getting every time their players quite clearly pushed a Port Adelaide player in the back and they gave up a free kick for it. It
Mm,
was it was sweet to the taste.
yeah.
It was funny, and yeah, as parochial because I think I've been to quite a few Richmond Port games, and I think they
Mhm.
support in a similar fashion to Port Adelaide supporters.
Yeah.
And yeah, if it was our home game, we'd just be like, oh, for crying out fucking loud, like just give us a break. But objectively, they were putting two hands in the back quite regularly and pushing, and the umpires were awake to it, which
Mhm.
was, I mean, it doesn't make up for a couple of years of, you know, a lot of goals being given the other way against us because of it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was
I
just
got to
one
talk to
funny
my
note coming out.
therapist about the prelim again and the fucking deliberate out of bounds and all that shit. But yeah, it
Yeah,
is. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, they were it's a saying in soccer a lot is like teams that are the masters of the dark arts, which is often they're good teams and they can just
Yeah.
they get
Yeah, you
away with
mentioned that a lot last year.
they get away with that little bit of that stuff and sometimes when you fall off that dynasty and then obviously they've moved on from Dimmer moved on from them. Um, it's not you, it's me. Actually, it might have been you. I think is what Dimmer was saying in at the end of that. But yeah, they've moved on from that whole era of what they were, and now they're kind of like, oh shit, that they're seeing this stuff now because it's just like they're not the Richmond of old, and they're not going to get away with it. So I think there was a couple.
Apparently not.
I can't remember now. There was one or two frees. I was like, yeah, we got away with one there, but fuck, it all comes. These things usually come out in the wash. Just
Yeah, I
like
think yeah, there's always 50-50 calls.
yeah,
And if you're on the end of it, if you're on the positive end of it, great. If you're not, then you're always going to be frustrated.
yeah, get a little filthy. Yeah. Um, But yeah, it was funny seeing Lynch just get a little bit, and it's funny. You mentioned Butters as well. I love Butters in those contexts. You see people try to get the more people try to get under Butters' skin. Like there was one moment I think in I can't remember if it was a center bounce contest or just a contest around the ground. Little bit of push and shove, and Butters was just big like ear grin at the guy that was trying to get into
He
his
loves it.
face.
Yeah.
He fucking loves that shit. And already at this point, I'm just like, if you're an opposition team, just don't do that to him
Just don't.
because
Yeah.
he's gonna
It,
that is gonna light him up because he ended up, he had a great game and we'll do a 5-1 in a little while here and I'm sure he'll feature quite near the top for both of us. And yeah, it's just I can't believe teams trying to get under it because he is one of those just like snarky little players that's just gonna feed
they
on
might
it.
learn.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping they don't because honestly, it works for us. Have a crack at him.
Yeah,
Have a
yeah.
crack at him at your peril. But
I
yeah,
think it was I think it was Ricky Ponting who used to tell his players like when Brian Lara is batting, and I think there was another batsman from another country, maybe Jacques Callis or something like that. If they're batting, just shut
similar
up
era. Yeah.
because the more you talk to them, the harder they'll focus and the
Mm,
harder it is to get them out. And yeah, the good thing about Zach Butters in the last 18 months is while as chirpy as the next guy in the AFL, he can actually back it up. And yeah, it
mm.
seems to put him in a better frame of mind to actually take the game away from you as an opposition. So, like you said, yeah, hopefully it keeps coming and fires him up
Yeah.
to, if not the same standard of year he had last year, and even better one.
Mm. I'd love to actually hear like what Josh Carr thinks of him as a player because I feel like he's just got that similar chirpiness about him. That maybe not as
Yeah,
overt as Josh Carr because Josh Carr was a real pest apparently, but Butter seems to just have that. Every time I just see him interacting in contests, you can't hear what they're saying, but he just seems to carry that similar energy that Josh Carr used to back in the day when you
yeah.
just see him in there and you just know Josh Carr's pissing someone off and I love that because you need to have those guys in those teams. And similar to Josh Carr, they're both incredible players, like classy as fuck. And Butters is a special player, and I think that's probably something that's come out of. I sent out just one of the most basic tweets of ever. Of just I was just like, holy fuck, Butters is classy. Like because I was just sitting there when I got home, and he just did some little move, and he
Mm,
is he's one of the best players in the competition. If if he goes at this rate for the whole year, he's going to be right up there in the Brownlow again. Like he's gonna. I think he put the competition on notice last year, but he's gonna. But it was still like it was the first year that he was really up there. The competition's
yeah.
on notice, but I think this is the year that people are really gonna realize that Butters is like a special player. We know already, but the competition is
Hmm.
really going to know this year if he keeps up at this pace because just already this year, I'm just noticing so many little moments of brilliance. Just whether it be his distribution, obviously his ability to break the lines, his finishing it when that's required is reasonable as well, and he's blowing me away already early this year. And it's funny, only a couple of weeks ago we are like, oh, hopefully his ankle's all right, and still, yeah, touch wood, hopefully it's all right. But yeah, his first couple of weeks have been pretty
Mm,
fucking good. So, um, yeah, I just had to put a moment out there of just you know gloating about how good he is because he's just been
yeah.
fantastic. And there was
And
moments in this game in particular where moments of class were needed, and he, like I said, that start of the second half, putting that like putting that little one on out there for Charlie to pick up on, and yeah, it was a lot of moments in this game that Butters' class was the difference.
yeah, yeah, we have our midfield loves. That's going to become more and more apparent.
Yeah.
And it's good to have a midfield group full of just explosive and dynamic power
Mm.
that can set us apart from the rest of the competition. Yeah. It's something a little bit funny, but just in your train of consciousness, sometimes, shower thoughts and things like that. Zach Butters is the type of player that I've thought, if there was ever to be a documentary made retrospectively about a hypothetical great period of Port success, which touch wood, that actually comes to fruition.
Mm.
Opposition testament would be like, we did this, this, and this, and this, and we tried this strategy and whatnot, but they had a Zach Butters. We didn't have a Zach Butters on our team, and then Zach Butters comes up and it shows a bunch of highlights. It's stupid. It's a ridiculous thought, but
Yeah, they
yeah,
just
I
those
like
Zach.
long warm showers, so a lot of stupid shit enters my mind. But he's that type of player. If you've watched sport documentaries, sometimes things can be framed a little bit like that about marquee players in dynasty teams and successful teams and stuff like that. But yeah, and Zach Butters would fit that mold perfectly if we were to continue and hopefully have some success. He is just uh, he's unmatchable, really. Yeah, just because he's a freak in his size and stature versus the way that he plays and the effect that he has on a game. Um, sure, and try and take him out, try and get in his head. Good luck. And if you do, he'll probably have some down games. No one can have the absolute perfect season. But cool. Good luck stopping the rest of them.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, I was hearing like I'm sure like you having brought that up, you probably watched a few 30 for 30 documentaries, and I'm just starting to hear like the start of the 30 for 30, not like that music that they play at the start of 30 for 30, and just like the director coming up and being like, I was inspired by Zach Butters, and just yeah. I
Yeah,
look
you can
forward
see
to
it
it
already,
already.
can't
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
Yeah, we just
I'm
need
seeing it
that
in my
fucking
mind like
premiership.
yeah, I'd prefer that rather than the Four Falls of Buffalo
Yeah,
documentary.
which I did watch after your recommendation a couple of years
Yeah,
ago. Great, that
it's
was a great documentary.
it's one of those tragic ones, but it's a fantastic one as well. There's
But it
one.
just goes to show that shit does happen in sport. And when you're on the receiving end, it's fucking shit. But it
Mhm.
happens all across the world. You just, yeah, hold your rosary beads or what have you tighter and tighter in hope that your team can actually get that break of luck that it
Yeah.
deserves in our opinion as the fan of said club or
Mm.
franchise that chases glory.
Yeah. It's one of those things I think I've said this to you before. I say this to a lot of my friends. It's just like we're all fools in this game because we're all fans of teams in whether it be, the AFL being an 18 team competition, soon to be 19. American sports are all 30 to 32 team competitions.
Yeah.
There's only one winner at the end. We're all in a losing. We're all playing against the house, and the house
Yeah, a
always
losing
usually
market.
yeah yeah. So yeah, but we're off to a 2-0 start, and beyond all the fun storylines, which has been again, it was an interesting weekend for it, but it was you know I feel like we're off to a pretty good start, all things considered.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
kind of where I'm at. Like there's and I think I said this before we get into the categories. I just thought to finish on this thought, and because I think you probably think similar, but I'd be interested to hear your thought. It's all like I love being 2-0, having a couple of reasonably comfortable wins in the end. There was moments, but reasonably comfortable wins in the end. But still having a lot of things to work on. Like there is a lot of things to
Yeah.
look at and work on. I think that's a great place to be. If we just come out and won by 100 points in both games, I would have enjoyed it and I'd be fine with it. But at the end of the day, it's probably at the start of the year, it's probably better to have a few, testing moments against decent opposition. I mean, we smashed West Coast pretty well, but Richmond were a decent opposition on the day. Whether they turn out to be that for the year, as we said, we don't know. But to have a bit of a test, they've got a few classy players. You said the spine is still pretty good. I like to kind of be in that frame of mind where I'm not super comfortable, but we're still 2-0. It's kind of a good place
Hmm.
to be. Things to work on.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, I don't want to be playing the perfect football right now.
Yeah.
And I think GWS have the bye. I'm not sure who else. Maybe Sydney does as well. I can't remember this week. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, there's a great opportunity to maybe push even further up the ladder.
Mm.
Not that there's too many more spots to jump at this present time, but yeah, I thought I don't know if you've seen Ken Hinkley's post-match press conference, but
I haven't actually.
you always look for themes, and both his naysayers more so look for
Hmm.
themes in his speech and whatnot, and yeah, look, everyone has their own opinion about Ken and whatnot, but yeah, put that to one side. He does it. And look, I'm not at the front of the lynch mob. But yeah, sometimes he doesn't help himself because in part of his press conference, he mentioned about how, that he's still learning and
Mm.
that, last year we might have gone a bit too hard too early. And, he's, learning a bit that maybe we don't want to be, yeah, pushing so hard. And although we want to win, we're going to have to still keep the end in mind. I just listened to it and I just thought, well, yeah, of course, but a 12-year coach just shut up. Don't say that. Like
Don't don't
what you're
don't.
saying is right. Yeah, we don't want to be playing the perfect football right now, and I totally agree with you. But don't say
Mm,
that you're still learning because you're just giving fuel to the haters and
uh,
backing
those.
yourself into a corner. And he's also changed. I think Kimbo on the Rooch today briefly. I listened to him before I got home, and they mentioned about how he was always you get what you deserve, but in the press conference he made the point of saying you don't always get what you deserve. So it was just another part of it where I was just like, fucking hell. Yeah. Your Elias's and your Costas of the world are writing that down and saving that little soundbite for future reference for sure.
Mm,
But yeah, look, yeah. Agree with what he said, agree with what you said. A 100-point win in both games would have been fantastic, but the skepticism probably would have been higher. Yeah, it's
yeah.
good to win by some comfortable margins and still have some synergy to search for and still have some improvement to make. And hopefully, it keeps trending that
Yeah. Absolutely.
way.
Um.
One last thing I did want to toot my own horn about was that I mentioned last week that Todd Marshall and Jeremy Finlayson kicked 0 goals 7 between them, and that if you thought that was going to happen again, you'd be kidding yourself. And as a result, they kicked 7 goals between them,
Mm,
plus the behinds that they kicked. So
yeah.
I think a few critics got a bit sidetracked of the point that I was trying to make. The very simple point I was trying to make is that it was round one last week,
Mm.
and that very rarely does any team play the perfect game in round one. Um,
And if they
but
play the perfect game in round one, usually they don't end up playing the perfect game at the right time of the year. So
yeah.
yeah.
But look, they both put in the work. And at the end of the 4 quarters yesterday, they ended up on the positive side of the goal kicking ledger. So, and how much better did our forward line look as a result?
Mm.
But yeah, just wanted to put that out there.
No.
So we go 1-1 in games where we've scored more goals than behinds as well. I'm kind of thinking that I might keep a tally throughout this season just to see, just
That'd
for
be
some
fun.
objectivity.
Yeah. I did actually just before we get into the spotlight in our categories here, I did kind of just have a look at the score lines around the league because it is funny. The winning teams, St Kilda kicked 14 goals 10, pretty, Geelong 14 goals 12, Fremantle 15 goals 12, Melbourne 14 goals 9, pretty good. The Bulldogs 18 goals 7, really, really fucking good. But Sydney 19 goals 17, GWS 16 goals 12, us 18 goals 14. It's the goal kicking thing again. I'd love to if we wanted to try to improve better, but Port Adelaide aren't an aberration against the rest of the league. It's actually just a pretty in line with everything that's going on around the league. So, and that's the thing is like it's actually just a league wide problem as we mentioned a little bit last week. So I kind of had a look at the score lines across the league this week and it was like, geez, we're right within the means of what the if you did a graphic or whatever of what the score lines are, we're right in the
Yeah,
yeah, right there. So yes, I'd love us to start better with the goal scoring, but the guys that as you just mentioned, Finlayson and Marshall came up pretty strong towards the end there. Marshall, I think, started off with a couple of points and ended up kicking 4 straight for the rest of the game. So um, and at the right end of the game as well. So yeah, that's all you can ask for is the guys standing up when it counts. And as I mentioned earlier, to start off that second half with all three of them dobbing goals in quick succession, with Houston popping up in there as well to kind of break the game open a little bit. That's mental fortitude that I like to see out of those guys as well. So it was good stuff. Um, yeah. All right, spotlight. Ready
let's
for it?
do it.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. I've already we had a discussion off air beforehand, and I've had one of those weekends again that I seem to and find myself into everywhere. I think I was going first on this one, wasn't I?
You're going first today, Dave.
Jamie's keeping me in line here. All right, so my positive this week I have to I had a couple of contenders here, but I thought I'd give it to Ollie Wines, who has been a player that obviously was had a bit of an interesting year last year. Was much maligned for what, not so much that he had his numbers were okay, but compared to what we knew he was capable of with Brownlow years and whatever, was fairly down. But particularly this week with Horn Francis obviously being out, he stepped into the role and really got into the guts of the midfield. Had 26, 27 disposals, I think. 10 clearances was really key. And just he started the year and looks really, he looks in shape, looks fit, looks up for the contest, and looks like a completely different player from last year. And again, I'm not expecting him to, whether he gets back to Brownlow best Ollie Wines, but his play is of that ilk, far closer to that so far this year than it was to what he was obviously last year and since that Brownlow year really. And as we said at the start of the year, if he can be kind of fit this year, it's like a new signing again compared to what he's been the last couple of years. And with how much we run pretty deep in that midfield group a little bit, but when you've got guys like, and Horn Francis is still a growing player and he's going to have some time out of the side here and there, I think, with just he might have those little hamstring niggles, and to be able to actually maybe not have to push him if Wines is in this kind of form is a really good thing. And particularly Wines can be the kind of player that when he is off the boil a little bit, fans do pick up on it. I thought it's good to give him a bit of some kudos for really he's come into the season really well prepared, and the preseason has done him some good, and it just shows how important it is for a player just to have a proper preseason to get themselves prepared and get themselves in game shape for week one.
Yeah, he was definitely in consideration for me. He's building quite nicely, and just a sneak preview, I may have slipped him in my votes. Don't know where yet though. You don't know where yet. But yeah, I think he's building. There's a few of those moments where he kind of got in the way a little bit. Yeah, a bit annoying, but I think it was more a symptom of early season cobwebs. But he's
structure around the contest and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's trying to be the big midfielder, and it's a big midfielder kind of symptom sometimes is that you just try and take on the lion's share of the inside work and that real grunt work around the stoppage that sometimes you do find yourself getting in the way of other people. But yeah, he's tracking well. Like you said, 10 clearances and 26 disposals. Another thing that so I was talking about themes in coaches' press conferences and stuff. It's also in the media, and David King is a real one for finding a theme, and he's been chatting about broken tackles lately. So it's kind of like flicked a kind of light bulb in my mind, for want of a better term. But Ollie Wines is probably one. Noticed on the weekend. Yeah, good luck trying to tackle him. If he's built up a little bit of momentum, or if he is around the stoppage, because he's a strong boy, and if he's giving he's probably not our best ball user, but if he's giving it to our best ball users, then check, tick in my mind. That's your role. Do it, win the ball, and I think he's building quite well. I think he's still more in him to go along with it. We don't need him to be in Brownlow medal form. We've got plenty of other players to share the load, and yeah, that's a good pick. Like I said, he was in consideration for mine as well.
Yeah. I
was.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Did you want to go on to mine, or did you want to go your?
Oh yeah, you do your your positive spotlight, and then I'll go into my the other side of the flip side of the coin.
Rightio. Yeah, that sounds good. So I thought you were actually going to take mine for a second there, and I panicked because I'd taken a gamble on both of mine by selecting one player. A gamble in the fact that I only had one person listed here. But cut to the chase. Mine is Willem Drew. So I am seat 1A.
If I was sharing my screen, you'd see I have Ollie Wines / Willem Drew. I was basically, and I just, great minds.
Great minds. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm seat 1A in the Willem Drew fan club.
Mm,
Me and my dad and my brothers, yeah, in day 535 of the Eastern Stand, you'll find the Willem Drew fan club. Um, I love that guy. I love
mm,
everything that he brings, and yeah, within the Port Adelaide fan base, he is getting. I mean, he's been recognised fairly handsomely over the last 12 to 18 months to 24
absolutely.
months.
Mm,
But his profile is building more, and he's been shifted out to a different position in preparation for this season, which he's taken on quite well, and uh, is still able to contribute to around the ground stoppages. Obviously, being on a wing, which is beneficial. It's not just centre bounces that we require him for,
mm,
and as a result of being in that midfield group still and being on a wing and being flexible, he's found himself in the goals for the first 2 weeks and looks to be somewhat of a reliable goal kicker too.
mm,
So got a good head on his shoulders. We all know the jobs that he can do, and for all the good football that Shea Bolton played in the first half, Drew was given a job in the second half and completely took him out of the game and forced Shea Bolton to get in his own head a little bit. And there was one passage of play. I don't know if Drew was directly influencing this particular passage, but while Bolton was taking the logical choices, especially with goal kicking in the first half, after a bit of attention and under a bit more duress mentally, he went. Bolton went for a bit more flashy stuff in the second half, and it didn't quite pay off. And is that a direct result of the job that Drew was given? I'm not sure. You'd have to ask Bolton to face himself in the mirror for that answer. But
mm.
yeah, look, Drew just keeps getting it done. He's building in that wing role, which for an inside midfielder, I think a lot of people might have been a bit surprised with that move of the magnet. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of stoppages in the game of football,
Mm.
and he can still influence in that regard. So yeah, um, I
Yeah.
can't go past my mate Willem. Willem's actually a term of endearment in my family, um, just from our love of Willem Drew.
That's incredible. So
Doing
you
something
just
good, you're a Willem.
I love that. I'm gonna have to remember that one. Yeah, that was
Yeah, it's a
one of
cool
the
name to say too.
yeah, one of the Twitter responses we got was Chris at the Cuddy Sark said, Drew, discuss, legend already.
Yeah,
What?
I saw that and I was like, just you wait.
It's not the last time he's gonna come up today either.
Yeah,
Trust me.
I could
Yeah.
go on about Drew. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well,
I
and
think
if he finds that extra percentage of improvement as well in a
yeah.
different position, um,
I think particularly for
it'd be
him, it's
amazing.
he just seems nonplussed wherever he is on the field. He's got a very calm demeanor about him. The most you'll see is him occasionally kind of gesticulating about a decision, maybe, but it's even then he's just like he's kind of like, you know, what the fuck just happened there, but like whatever. Like he just
Hmm.
knuckles down and gets to work, and his just general carry and demeanor about him has always been ever since he's come into the side has been, yeah, I'm just here to do a job, and I trust in myself and my abilities to do the job, and and that's just how he's built into his career at Port. Is like he came in and we weren't sure at first. You know, a lot of people maybe weren't sure, but he's just earned our trust by being completely trusting in his own abilities, and that's just yeah, like you said, yeah, yeah. Having that as a term of endearment in your family is just perfect because he is just that kind of guy. It's just like, yeah, just pull a Willem. Like that's all you got
Yeah,
to do.
just get it
Just
done.
work hard to get it done. You know, have a beer after,
Yeah,
have a beer
yeah. He
after, and
doesn't do
move
fun
on to the
stuff,
next
but he
week.
does
Yeah.
what he needs to.
Hmm. Yeah. Nah, he's
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah. Love him.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. With the hot, we go the cold. And who have you
Yeah.
got?
I've got and you know, I try to remove myself from putting the youngsters in there as much as possible, like the guys that are you know, trying to find a place in the side. So you know, there's a few, you know, I know Jace Bergon was pretty quite early, and but I just guys that are just coming are in and out of the side a little bit. I don't like to pick in this kind of stuff because it's hard to find when you don't have a defined role week to week. It's very hard to the game gets infinitely harder. So the
Yeah, and
one I've
round
picked,
two is going to be harsh still as well.
yeah, the one I've picked is just between the 2 weeks, and I love this player, and loved what I think he had a strong end to last year, and I think he's going to bet into the side this year as well. But it's a little bit of a thankless role in our system at times. But Willie Rioli, I just think has had a quiet couple of weeks. 20 disposals through 2 games, 1 goal, three. I think 2 or 3 goal assists. As I said, his role in our system is a little bit thankless at times. Motlop had a similar kind of. He was derided by fans, and I would often push back against the Motlop stuff because I was just like, it is a little bit of a thankless role at times. But I think just I would have expected just a little bit more out of Riola the first couple of weeks because that's how much I rate him. I think at his best, he's always there. Like you can always see him in picture. He just hasn't quite found the ball, and he's just started the year a little bit quieter than I expected. And that's as much a sign of my respect for his game. And what I think he can be, that's why I've put him there. It's very positive criticism. It's just I've been disappointed that he's got himself 1 goal through 2 games and racked up 20 disposals through his couple of games.
That was a free kick as well against
Yeah,
West Coast.
exactly. So yeah, and even he had one of those missed goals, missed shots early when we were struggling a little bit in front of goal, and against Richmond was one that when he's at his best, he probably dobs, I think.
Absolutely.
I think even the commentators literally said he leant back on it a little bit and just kind of just faded right a little bit. So just a quiet start for him to the season. I expect him to get better, and I have no doubt in his ability going forward. It's just he has had a quiet start, and that's just the one. When I was looking through the game and looking at the stats a little bit, I was just like, that's the only one I can pick out that kind of fits the mold of a player that is week to week for us. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you so much that I also had Rioli.
Well, that saves us some time, doesn't it? Yeah, no, go ahead and you can give us
look,
that, give us the thoughts as well.
yeah. No, I agree. Small forwards, I think fans of football clubs don't actually realize what the role of a small forward is in this day and age.
Mm-hmm.
And predominantly their role is to create space for your medium to tall forwards. And whatever you get in a goal sense comes off the back of that. And that's how I interpret it just throughout my listening and watching of AFL media, but not journalists predominantly. It's coaches and players who talk about the game as well. They are the first ones to say that small forwards get a bad rap because of, like you said, it's a thankless role. And look, week one, like we spoke about, we weren't getting very many deep entries, and to a lesser extent this week, the same thing happened. And for a small forward, you need some of that in and around goal. And so we'd like a few more goals out of him. I think that there was enough crumbs that if he was in the right position that he probably could have taken advantage of. It's not to say that he had no opportunities in the first 2 weeks. He absolutely did. And this week, DBJ kicks 3 goals. So, yeah, it's going to probably work like that throughout the whole year. Each small forward is probably going to have their game and the other ones won't. Just as long as you're taking some moments that are there for you to take, it's all that you can really ask for. And look, again, the small forward role is to create space for bigger forwards, but also on the defensive end, it's to apply pressure. I think that's probably the 2 biggest aspects of a small forward in this day and age. My understanding of it anyway, like I said, from listening to people who are involved with the professional game. But he's a forward, and yeah, we'd want a bit more of a return on investment if he's a senior player. If he's going to stay in the team, he needs to just build his contribution just that little bit more. Yeah. And we all know what he's capable of.
Pal Pepper's out of the side at the moment too, so we kind of
that's a good point. Yeah.
So the opportunities are a bit more there, but then I feel like him and Pal Pepper in the same side last year worked pretty well. So maybe it's just a balance thing. Not exactly sure, but it's just like I said, it was really just having to find someone. He's just the one that stuck out.
Look, my fullback, I just I did have a fullback, but
Yeah,
again,
no,
it's
good.
harsh.
Yeah.
It's harsh because I thought he had a good game in round one, and it's
Mm.
like, well, is he in a bad run of form? And so just before I mention it, Frank Evans had his first game from being a sub, so he's pretty much excluded in my mind. Lockie
Mm.
Jones is probably lucky he got subbed out in a way because obviously he was mine last week, so
Yeah, and he
he
did
was under the microscope.
did
But
seem to get a bit of a knock early and had to
I
get subbed out
think it was a
eventually.
cork. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah. So
he's
yeah,
probably a
look,
little bit sore through the whole game, I think.
can't can't pick him and Dill
Mm.
Williams. I thought he had took some good moments, but again, you were
Mm.
the sub that came on, so again exempt. With all that being said, I thought Ryan Burton let himself down in a lot of defensive efforts, particularly in the first half.
That was my second
I've
choice if I had to make one too.
Yeah, and it's tough because I do think, and like he's up there in meters gained and rebound 50s and
Hmm.
some of the other key markers of what his role in the team is, but um he's a defender.
Hmm.
So when the ball is there to be defended or you've got to make an impact on a contest, make an impact on the contest. And yeah, I think he let himself down on a few occasions yesterday,
Hmm.
but I'll just stay brief on my comments because it's probably a bit harsh at round two. He's not going to get dropped or anything like that. He'll play this weekend, and he's done some great jobs. He might have done a job on Pickett last year, or it might have been Kane Farrell. But he has done some jobs, I think, on Charlie
Hmm.
Cameron as well in the past. So he is capable. He just needs to make sure that he's in the right spots at the right times and actually make an impact when it's required of him.
Yeah,
Is all I'll say.
kind of the body on the line when it needs to be on the line kind of thing. Because yeah, there was a moment on Twitter, and I was at the party at the time, so I think I saw it in the game when I was watching it back. But I just remember just checking the scores on Twitter, and there was just a bunch of tweets at one point where it was just like, "What the fuck are you doing, Burton? Like, just let him go right by you." And I remember watching. I think can't remember who kicked the goal, but there was just a moment where he kind of was just like he kind of it looked like he'd given up on it, and to be honest, like sometimes they when you're actually on the ground, you know why they have because they probably just like, yeah, no, I'm not getting there. So, but the vision sometimes looks a little bit. Sometimes it's a little
Yeah.
bit more obvious that they've yeah. Sometimes you've just got to put the token effort in at least, and then sometimes the token effort turns into an actual effort that works because footy's a weird game. So
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
that's sometimes just a few of those moments for him. So yeah, that was going to be my fullback as well. So again, great minds. This podcast providing incredible insight. All right, into some more positive stuff. Goal of the week. Was I going first? So
Yeah, you go shoot it off.
cool. All right. My goal of the week contender. I had picked two, but my number one was clearly. I think it's pretty obvious on this podcast. I'm a pretty big soccer fan as well, and DBJ.
Through Rosie to the square. Rioli, the target. Nervous moments for Tresize. Volleyed through by Burn-Jones. How good was that?
But that's 2 goals without touching.
DBJ has been a bit of a scapegoat at times, so I like to get, and understandably so at times, but I do love him as a player as well, and his first 2 goals he didn't touch the ball with his hands, which is incredible. I
Yes.
noticed that in
Yeah.
my second watch of the game, but like his first goal was a little like poacher's tap in, but his second goal was just a fucking beautiful volley curled. In the soccer world, we say top bins. That's what that one would have been. It would have just gone top corner.
And it came off of a header as
Yeah,
well.
exactly. It's beautiful, and even with his little mop of hair he's got going on, he kind of is reminiscent of
Love that.
Mo Salah a couple of years ago. So
Yes.
just everything, the vibes about it, everything about it was
Needs a bit more
yeah,
stubble, facial
yeah,
hair.
exactly, yeah. Um, and I'm sure he'd love Mo Salah's bank account as well. But
Wouldn't we
yeah,
all?
yeah, yeah. This podcast would have far better production values. The talent the talent wouldn't change because the talent's priceless, but the
Yeah,
production
we're
values
just
itself, yeah.
agreed.
But yeah, that was just a beauty. I love and ingenuity as well. Like it's just obviously the aesthetics of it are just fun to watch, but actually just him, when you marry it up with the first goal, it's just he's taken some poacher's opportunities, again, soccer terms coming into it, but for him to just fly in there and just curl that one around, you need little moments like that in footy games sometimes to win games. You kick your goals from forwards leading into
It's a good
space.
presence of mind.
Yeah, set shots, all those things. But the special teams that win premierships over the years always have those moments within seasons where a guy just comes in and scores a goal in some random fashion like that. And I love seeing that kind of ingenuity in it, and particularly with DBJ having kind of had to reinvent himself into that forward role a little bit, and he kicked 3 for the day. Actually, every goal of his for the day, his running finish, I think it was in the fourth quarter.
In the pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From 35, 40 out in the pocket. Was a brilliant finish, and obviously his first 2 goals are little, soccer finishes in the I was about to say in the box, in the square. So yeah, just an incredible 3 goals. Actually, you could nominate any one of them possibly, but the volley is just aesthetically fun to watch, and certainly not a goal you see too often in footy either. So I had to nominate that one. Just both.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some positives for DBJ as well, because he is playing a decent role up there, and certainly a goal worthy of nomination.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was obviously in my list. It'll probably be the goal of the day on social media, I would imagine. But yeah, similar to what you said, like some of the big games that we'll play this year and some of the big games across the league are divided by moments in the game, and that's a moment. It's there to take, and he took it. So hopefully we see more of small key moments being taken throughout the year. So yeah, obviously I had that in my list.
Love that.
So the one that I'm going to go for is Charlie Dixon's goal in the third quarter.
It creates all sorts of possibilities for Butters, who guides it to Dixon. We don't that often see Charlie leading up and taking those marks inside the 50. He's normally a long, deeper target, so it might be something we see more of. This is the important component, though, that Port haven't been able to get right this year. But Charlie does. He gets it right here and now and makes a little statement.
A minute and a half into the third quarter, coming back from halftime. Now, as we've spoken about a lot in this episode, goal kicking was obviously at the front of everyone's minds, and lips and fingers online talking about just a terrible effort it was in the first half. So coming into the second half, while we're, I think, 11 points behind at that stage, bang, bang, bang. Like you said, I think Butters hit him up with a great kick. He was about 50 meters out. People have their perceptions on Dixon's accuracy. I think if you look at the statistics over the last four years, he's not that bad as what you'd probably think. But first opportunity in the second half, a senior player who can kick 50-meter bomb, minute and a half to just kill whatever momentum Richmond thought they had, and he took it and put it right through the middle. And it was an important goal, and as you mentioned earlier, it created a run of goals where we put our foot down and put a stamp on the start of that third quarter. And that, who knows, swings and roundabouts in football, had he not kicked that, and the way that we were probably defending in the first half, Richmond quite easily could have gone back and kicked a goal down the other end. But he does his job as he's paid to do, and the momentum switches in our favour from that point on. So Dicko, third quarter, sealed the deal.
Absolutely. That one was my second choice. I had listed was I just want to give an honourable mention. Obviously, it won't be nominated, but Finlayson selling some candy and slotting one with a little bit of bend on it. I thought was a nice finish. So that was going to be my other choice if I was.
That's the stuff we love about Finlayson.
Yeah.
When he's in the right headspace. Yeah.
And I just love that it was him selling a little bit of candy. Selling candy is just such a classic AFL colloquialism, but it's always fun when it's a player that you're not expecting to do it too. Like it's not
Yeah.
something I'm expecting him to
Like a
do too
ruckman
much.
or something.
Yeah. It's kind of like, wasn't it? Was it a Sydney game a couple of years ago where like Scott Lysett seals the deal and like from the pocket? Oh, it was actually like right in front of our seats when I was able to go to the games, and I think
Yeah.
I can't remember who the commentator was. It might have been Brayshaw or someone was like, "Ruckman don't do that." Like,
Hutto, I think.
oh, was it Hutto? I couldn't
Yeah.
remember who it was. Yeah, Hutto.
I think it was, yeah.
He was probably he was a lot more excited about that one than he was watching us pile goals on this weekend.
Something we haven't touched on, but yes, I completely agree. It was very Hutto had his Victorian pants on for sure.
Oh,
Big time
absolutely.
on Sunday.
Yeah,
Which was disappointing because I rate Hutto as a cooler. He obviously called our premiership in 04.
Yeah, classic commentary moments with Williams coming down the stairs, holding the tie and stuff. He's a part of my fandom is like Hutto's commentary. But yeah, it was a bit of a
I rate him. I was just surprised and
he
a
was
little irked
phoned it in a little bit. I just think he just had a narrative in mind and didn't want to switch from it, I guess, which is
he had Revolt by his side, and who knows?
Yeah.
It was strange.
Yeah. Honorable mention also to Jackson Mead for his goal, just because everyone thinks it was touch. I think they
can think all they want.
Yeah, ball don't lie. Sweeney Award. I think this one's you get the first one here, and I'm gonna let. I was about to say I feel like I know where you're gonna go with it, but I'll let you take it away anyway.
Oh well, yeah. I'm not sure if you do.
Okay. If you
apologies for last episode, I totally blanked on the fact that we weren't doing goals in the Sweeney. Although mine was more.
Yours was about the milestone, and I did kind
it
of
came off the back of a goal though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I listened to the episode back while I was driving, and I was like, shit. Not only did I pick one goal, I had 2 goals in my list. But there was more the moment and the milestone rather than the goal itself, because it was a pretty nothing goal.
Yeah. And that's I did that with the socials. I was like, milestone snag. It wasn't about the milestone. So no, you're all good. And to be fair, I have to collate the votes for that. I actually meant to do a socials post about that, but family beers got in the way this weekend. But yeah, a lot of people voted for it. I think it might have won actually. So
it kind of tore away a lead. I think it kind of evened up a little bit as the week went on.
I've got to collate the Twitter and Instagram votes and put it together. I'll do that. But yeah, anyway, go ahead with this week. So
obviously breaking away from the goals themselves, but mentioned him in your spotlight. But when moments are there to be taken, or if you've perhaps not put yourself in a position, but you still have the ability to affect the game, do it. At the very least, make your presence known. And in the first quarter, Rioli, who you mentioned, and we both probably agreed, he hasn't had the best start, but he found himself probably banking a bit too far off of the defender. And luckily, the defender spilled what was a relatively easy mark in the goal square. And although Rioli was out of position, he
stamped his authority early last week, but doesn't get the access there.
The ball took 25 marks inside 50, so that man there, Nick lost.
Not the spot for an error like that. Short, got some help when he needed it. Now he made it Floston's problem. Rioli gets a free kick and they'll get the goal. Advantage. Burne-Jones was there to take that advantage.
A nice little tap through there for an easy goal.
I think that's the pleasing part. So Rioli didn't do his job as a small forward of trying to
made sure that he closed the space immediately and put enough pressure on the defender and didn't give up on the ball itself. And as a result, it led to a goal, which could have easily been his goal in the end. But it was more the fact that he found himself probably a fraction off the player, which allowed the player a somewhat easy, what should have been an easy mark, but the player didn't mark it. So he found himself in the contest again, and he didn't give up on the ball, which allowed his teammates to come and help. And we benefited from that in the end. So in a game where, that was probably his best home game. Again, a senior player, first quarter, do what you have to do to affect the contest if you don't have the ball to the benefit of the team. And that's what he did. There's probably some other ones that I probably could have picked, but I just appreciated the fact that he didn't give up on the ball and we benefited from it in the end as a result.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's actually, that's a really good one because that's the whole, I love that because that's the spirit of the Sweeney is like moments like that, like, not the ones that you sometimes find they're often not in the highlights packages or whatever, or they're not the focus of a highlight package, so to speak. But it's just those ones that you as a fan,
I tried to keep that in mind.
that you as a fan make you feel good. Yeah, I had one. I thought you were going to take it, but the one that I want to put out there, I think the obvious choice would be Boak being chaired off. That's the feel good moment of the game, but that's after the game, so to speak. So and I think we've given that I think we've given that its flowers, and I think in the spirit of what you've done, I'm going to go with my other choice here because I was a bit 50-50 on it anyway. And I tweeted about this. It was when so Charlie Dixon gets I think he gets a free kick. No, yeah, he does get a free kick late in the game and kicks his second goal.
Deep to Finlayson is obviously okay. Leaves it for Dixon. Holding. And it's a poor free. Not going to Charlie.
And this is what Charlie Dixon does. I mean, he doesn't get any smaller over the day. Such a big frame.
Thank you. Time back on.
He's always going to get free kicks like this because he's just plonks himself in front. He's in the contest most.
Critical that questionable touch scores at the start of the quarter. Port have dominated and clearly deserved to win.
And before the goal, while he's lining up for the shot, you see Todd Marshall kind of wanders up to him and just gives him a bit of a pep talk. Because Charlie he was at that point he was 1 goal 3. I think he ends 2 goals 3. So after the goal, like there's a bit of celebration and whatever. Like the game was done. It was not like it was a big goal in that sense, but Toddy just walks up to him and just both hands on the pecs of Charlie, just tapping on him, like kind of like he's drumming on him, and he's just like got a smile on his face, and he's just like he's saying, he's just like Todd and Charlie had this. There was just this Todd and Charlie moment where they were just like,
see, you're the man.
Yeah. This is you've got this, man. Like
I want to touch his pecs.
Yeah. And maybe that was just Todd's excuse to touch that Adonis of a man that is Charlie.
Bit of fondling, yeah.
And to be fair, I'd do the same if I was in the situation that Todd was, so I don't blame him. But it was just like that deep breathing from you just then was just incredibly like sexual, and I agree.
Slightly erotic on my behalf.
I felt like I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's a Jurgen Klopp press conference at Liverpool. It's just going to come up a lot, but he's like listening to an interpreter in his earpiece, and he just like goes, and he just completely goes off base and goes, "You've got a very erotic voice." It's just like,
I don't know if I have seen that.
I'll have to,
but I can imagine it in his German voice.
Yeah, it's just like he's got his big like teethy Jurgen Klopp smile, and he's just like, a very erotic voice. That's very nice. And he's just like, and everyone's laughing in the press room, and he's just like, that voice is very sure. Yeah, he's just but no, I love that moment between them because I thought it was just a little bit of in the essence of the Sweeney is just like feel good moments in footy as well, and things that make you feel good. It's just like I like seeing the boys get around each other in that sense because
they know what pressure they're under too,
and they hear like they'll tell you that they don't read, and to be fair, I do believe that they don't read a lot of what is said about them. Like a lot of guys, whatever world sports they are, there's a lot of athletes these days that just avoid the news and stuff like that beyond what they need to read because they know it's just going to be a lot of sensationalism stuff, but whether they read it, it's still going to be in they're going to hear, they're going to know that the chatter is going on about goal kicking and stuff. So to see those guys kind of supporting it, and particularly for Todd, for him to be kind of a hype man for Charlie in that moment, I think is a growth moment for Todd too. So it's just like he's kind of got a bit of a leadership role up forward there, and then Charlie's the senior guy, and they're just both, it was just a cool moment. So I really appreciated that, and it was also like I saw, as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's exactly why I put the Sweeney in like as a category, because I was like, this is just one of those moments that you know you might forget.
well,
You might
and I
forget
hope with
otherwise,
more of
but
these, yeah, sorry, with
yeah,
more of
no,
these, I hope that listeners can kind of see where we're kind of going with this
yeah,
topic and segment, should I say. It's not necessarily the things that, like you said, that top the highlight reel or anything like
mhm,
that. It's warm fuzzies,
yeah,
moments that make us appreciate, I guess, football, but more specifically the Port Adelaide Football Club, and moments in games that we appreciate. So a
exactly.
couple of good
Because
ones there.
yeah, um, and yeah, I had as like a backup option. I had like just Boak being shared off, but that's very on the nose. And to be fair, he's had his flower. He's going to have his flowers, and we'll continue to give him to him because he's an absolute champion. And obviously, you've noticed
Yeah,
the socials are completely changed just for him this week this weekend because he deserves it. So, um, it's but a
yeah,
couple of
yeah. Looks
a
great.
couple of fun nominations for this weekend. I'll be interested to see how the vote goes. I'm gonna have to find that footage from the first quarter. You said that was the first quarter for that Willie moment. I think I remember it,
Yes.
but yeah, I'll have to find
Yeah,
it
because
again.
it ended up in DBJ's first soccer
That's
goal.
that one. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, I know the one. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
I tried
find
to avoid talking about the goal specifically in
exactly. I
honor
was
of
just
the
yeah.
moment, but yeah, it was DBJ's first goal, and
Yeah.
like I said, yeah, if Willie, Willie, it could have been his goal, perhaps if he
Mm,
kept going and no one was around, but yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's funny that you bring because
Just
that
you just
oh yeah.
mentioned your socials.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just realized the filter in your background, the colors. Someone had a flag with that pattern in the cheer squad. I'm sure of it.
Oh,
So
I
I don't know where
yeah.
I don't know where
I
it's come
literally
from.
just did this on my. I think I did it on the iPad where I just like did the like my finger just like that with different colors and just made it work. So,
Yeah, right. Well,
'cause yeah,
they might have stolen it from you. They might not have, but it looked very similar to that. If you watch the vision back, I believe I saw a flag.
yeah, there
And for
was one
those
actually.
listening,
Yeah, it was.
apologies.
Yeah, um, it as long as it's not
But
as long as it's not Creed branded, then it's fine. And even then, I probably wouldn't get that bent out of shape because we're all here to support the Port Adelaide Footy Club anyway. So I'm not a dickhead
yeah,
like that.
absolutely.
So yeah, but yeah, yeah. But yeah,
Sorry, yeah,
it might be
just
might just
digressing a
be
little bit.
yeah, it might just be someone with a similar mind that just jumps on the iPad and just goes, "What can I do with my finger with the art app today?" Like,
Yeah, with
'cause
this,
sometimes I do that.
these
I just go
colors.
like, "What's this new like thing that this new feature that the I can't even remember what the app I use is called, but you just fucking you sometimes you just fuck around with like different settings and just see what paintbrushes work." Um,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah.
that's
All right,
art,
cool.
baby.
That's the play. That's the award nominations part of it. Now it's the Player of the Year vote, which is I'm really interested to see how this goes this year because it's like it's going to be fun with the way the votes go and all that. I think you kicked it off
You
last
go.
week. Yeah. All right.
I did. Yeah.
All right. I'll start with my number one vote. Now this is the one I probably had a lot of contention with because I wanted to, and I'll say it now. I'll give an honorable mention to Todd Marshall because I really wanted to fit him in there because
Hmm.
I think anytime, especially in the modern game, like maybe in the 90s, you would have said you need 6 or 7 goals out of your fucking forwards because back then it was, Mods and Dunstall
Stay
and
at home.
stay at home and kick a bag of 6 or 7 without even having to think about it. But these days, when your tall forward up front is leading out and kicking 4 goals too, that's a pretty good return any day, any week of the year. So I wanted to get Marshall in there, but I thought he isn't in there, so that's just an honorable mention. I just wanted to mention that he was very close. But my one vote goes to Brandon Zerk-Thatcher. I thought, as we've mentioned earlier, he's still trying to get the stain of Tom Lynch out of his pockets. He in his second game for the club, and he's probably the one that came in probably a little bit more under the radar. We weren't sure, we know I've watched, we've watched him a little bit, but he hasn't had a long, uh, game field career yet. So it's still a little bit of an unknown quantity as to how he'd fit in. But the fact that, and as I said, I kind of watched as much as I could off the ball as I could watching on a TV telecast, just watching the way he, um, was moving with Lynch and seemed to be frustrating him a little bit, I was just already like, all right, this is the Port Adelaide footy player, and so I wanted to, and obviously holding Tom Lynch, who's he's come back from injury or whatever, but holding a player of that caliber to and Tom Lynch's one goal came from just an out the back, just one of those early game moments, as you mentioned earlier. 50 seconds into the game, and after that, 100. Not going to say the number, but he held him pretty quiet for the rest of the way through, and was as you said, a pretty good part of that line this week. So had to give Zerk Thatcher his flowers there. It was a coin toss between BZT and Marshall. And I just wanted to get BZT in there, being his second game at the club. My number 2 vote goes to Ollie Wines. Any other day of the week with that kind of stat line, he could have been 3 or 4 easily. But I think that it was a hard week. There was a few that I could have got in there, and it was a tough one. That's why I like Marshall being out there. But Ollie Wines with, as we talked about earlier, with the spotlight, so we don't need to get into it too much more. But back to some of the Ollie Wines we absolutely love this week, and very deserved to be in the votes. Number 3, Connor Rosie. Again, any other week possibly could be up 4 or 5, but a couple of blokes above him. But our captain and new captain continues to impress, and almost maybe to his detriment, he's just such a metronome of a player now with his class and the way he fits into way he just goes about his business. He probably just didn't have quite as many highlight moments this week. Maybe just is about it. Like, no big goals or anything like that. So maybe that's what dropped him down and maybe didn't make him as noticeable to me. But like at the end of the day, he was still quite noticeable to me, obviously. And he's just there every week now. He's 2 years All Australian. He's an absolute class player, and we're lucky to have him. And he's going to be in the votes most weeks, I expect. As much as you try to fit guys in, there's just guys that just inevitably end up in there. The reason he's number 3 is because number 4, Willem Drury, was just as we talked about before, and I said he was going to come up again, and it's because he's number 4 in my votes, and I wanted to put him 5, but obviously it's probably pretty obvious who my 5 is. But Willem Drury's just what, as we talked about before, how he just kind of does whatever we ask him to do, he does, and actually does with absolute class. And his distribution, like what I've noticed over the last 12 to 18 months, is his distribution is actually incredibly good. Obviously, he's hitting the scoreboard a little bit more. Every time we see a new facet of his game, it's just like, fuck, he's good at that too. It's like, when is it'll be interesting to see when. I mean, I know. Jonathan Brown loves him because he's a Karoi boy or whatever it is. Like he always gets around him because of that.
Cousin or nephew or something as well.
But beyond that, the rest of the AFL world seems to still be a little bit in the dark about him. But he's probably one of the best kept secrets in the entire league, because he's grown into, and as credit to his deal that he got in the off season, he's grown into an incredibly indispensable player. And I guess the best praise you can give Drew is he's one of the first names on the team sheet these days. It's just, as long as he's fit, you lock him in there. And now that it's just like, it's not even one thing he can do. It's just like, if you need him to bounce around a little bit, he will. But obviously, my number 5 vote goes to Zach Butters. 30 plus disposals. Obviously, and I mentioned it earlier, there was moments in the game where you just needed a little touch of class. He broke the line. He had a couple of those little midfield dashes that he does, where he tucks the ball under and takes a bounce and just breaks the line a little bit, and then gets a great kick in forward. And as you nominated for your goal of the week, he was a part of that, and the assist with. And again, it's just been the first couple of weeks of the season where there's been a few moments where he's had a kick inboard into that kind of, and it's just the perfect kick. And his change of pace and the way he can do all those things is incredible. So he was undeniable at number 5. And like I said, there was a lot of guys I wanted to kind of fit into the votes, but that's part of the fun of doing a 5-vote system, is you kind of have to make some little choices here and there, and it makes it interesting.
Yeah.
It's a
good,
good,
the low end.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. I said there was a few guys on Twitter I chatted to about it earlier, and alluded to what I was going with, and a few guys were pretty on the money with what it might have been. And I said to them, it's a good problem to have. If you're struggling,
Absolutely.
if you're struggling to find 5 best players, then you're probably West Coast. So yeah. Sorry to any Eagles fans.
Yeah, what problems do you want to have in life?
Yeah. All right, take it away. I'm gonna get my little
Yeah.
notes going so I can type them as I go, so I don't have to listen back like I listened back last week.
Well, that's all right. I'm going to make it very easy for you, and this is going to be very quick because we got bingo today. We
Oh, did we?
Snap or however you want to say. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So yeah, basically what Dave just said, double that. Honorable mention for me though is DBJ for all that we spoke about earlier. He's impacting with his pressure in the forward line, but he found himself on the end of a few goals, which were opportune or otherwise. You put them away when you get the opportunity, and he did. So he's had a couple of good starts to the season, and yeah, he had one of those sneaky good games where he just found himself in some good spots when he needed to be there. So honorable mention for him, but yeah, one vote, Zerk Thatcher. Yeah, you can't do that good of a job on that good of a forward for that long and not get recognized. So yeah, fantastic. Like you said, he was probably lesser light in our recruitment drive at the end of last season, and because he's still young and developing and whatnot, but yeah, a much more cool, calm, and collected game from him, and he imposed himself quite well by shutting out their best forward. 2 wines he's building quite well, quite happy with his progress so far, moving back into the guts, and yeah, led the clearances, looks to be taking charge in the deep center, I guess you could say. 3, Rosie. I thought he actually was the best player on the field for the first half. I thought as captain, he was doing his best to keep us in the game while we were up against it. And I had his, he had a burst of speed out of the center or off the wing for an inside 50, which I think ended up in that header and volley DBJ goal. But yeah, he just, when he gets going as well, he's hard to stop from a speed perspective. And yeah, I thought he tried his guts out. Again, he pulled back. Zach kind of took over in the second half and had the better overall game in the end. But Rosie, yeah, just wanted to give him a shout out, particularly for his first half. Drew, for all the reasons that we've said, gets the 4 votes. He's amazing, up there in the 1%ers, all the little things that don't get recognized, but as we hear from the players, more than get recognized behind closed doors. And he's contributing, he's evolving his role in the side as well by being pushed out, as we spoke about. And 5, yeah, the clear best on 5 votes goes to Zach Butters because he's a champion. And yeah, I don't know if I'm deliberately putting the blinkers on in the first halves of our games so far, but I seem to only be recognizing him later in the game for how good of a game he's had, or in retrospect. And maybe that's part of the whole, like, trying to look for the people who are flying under the radar and kind of neglecting the people who are actually winning the game for us, like, to a fair degree. But yeah, it's not that I'm sleeping on Butters because I love the guy, as we've spoken about. But yeah, it's not until the end I'm like, yeah, fuck, he's had a really good game, hasn't he? Like, I don't know why I'm surprised, but yeah, he has, and he gets the 5 votes. So there you go.
I guess if we're going to ask for him to be better in either, or more noticeable in either half, it's going to be the second half, isn't it? Like, if he's kind of that player that builds into a game and really runs into steam in the second half, then we'll take
particularly
that.
The position that we're in.
Yeah, well. Yeah. I feel like even last year, and I guess a good segue into talking about the upcoming game this week. I feel like that Melbourne game last year, it was Butters that really he had like a really great, like, you know, third quarter and well, when we came back against them after they got ahead, like, he was really kind of like had his, like, you know, Brownlow highlight moments if he'd gotten to that point of the season. So yeah. I'm really excited to see how the Player of the Year votes progress. Like, obviously, there's going to be some front runners, but it is fun. Like,
we don't give these votes to each other.
Yeah, that was fun.
So,
yeah, completely blind going in, but
they go for other games.
Yeah, Yeah, to go chalk on it is just shows that there was a general, and there was a few people on Twitter, like I said, that kind of had that whether I didn't know what their mix would have been as far as if you'd ranked them, but they had that kind of mix of players as well. So, yeah. All right. So we got Melbourne this week. Saturday night. I think it's a Saturday night game.
Sure is.
I think it's very early Saturday morning for me over here. Looks like it's going to be a reasonably warm day again in Adelaide that day. I think it's looking like 28 degrees is what I saw in the preliminary forecast.
There's a shower forecast for some stage during the day.
Okay.
I think it's like afternoon.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, I'm not sure when. I don't think it's forecast to be that bad. So I don't think it'll be anywhere near the driving rain that it was last season when we came up against Melbourne. And Adelaide Oval drains really, really well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it looks like it should be a good night of football.
Yeah, that's what it's looking like. I think if it's 20, high 20s during the day, but if it's by the time it gets to the nighttime, it'll be a kind of good night for footy. And then the boys are playing some pretty. Obviously, the first game against West Coast was in pretty hot weather, and I think the game the other day was in obviously cooler but decent weather. So they kind of attuned to the early season weather that we're dealing with. Melbourne, obviously, some big news out of their weekend was the Stephen May and Jake Lever injuries. It seems like I was actually expecting a lot worse from it. They're saying Stephen May's I think fractured ribs. So he's definitely out this week, so we don't have to worry about him. Jake Lever seems to be a test because they're saying some niggle in the cartilage of his knee, but not quite the damage they're expecting. So, but yeah, obviously, we'd be hoping to go into the game and win it anyway. But yeah, Melbourne are playing some decent footy to start the year, which it kind of goes against what everyone was just waiting for the world to fall down with them.
I had a question mark on them myself.
Yeah, no, I was the same. And it's just as much, but when there's so much noise outside, outside of footy within a club, sometimes it can be a bad sign. But they are playing decent footy. They had a decent win against Hawthorn, obviously, this last weekend. A pretty handy win against the Doggies last week as well. They lost in a close one against Sydney in round 0, as it is known. But Sydney, that was up in Sydney, obviously, and Sydney are looking like a decent side this year as well. So, you wouldn't. That's not an embarrassing thing at all to lose by 22 points against Sydney in the opening round. So overall, you got to say they're a side in pretty good form, and ultimately, leading into a new thing that we've brought in this week is we're going to try to have 3 things. So. I'll have my one thing for the week. Jamie will have his one thing to look for going into the game ahead. And we'll have a collective one. And our collective one this week is the fact it's the first real big top 4 battle of the year. I think in the whole league. The fact that we're sitting in 3rd. I think Melbourne are in 4th. Basically, and it's round 3, so it's not really the top 4. It could fluctuate,
particularly with the opening round, it kind of muddies the waters a little bit.
Yeah, but still, it's 2 teams that have been up and around. Yeah, it's 2 teams that have been up and around the top 4 for the last 4 years, really. Obviously, Melbourne winning the premiership.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back, and we've both been up and around there, more or less in the last 4 years. So it's a bit of a top 4 battle. Obviously, last year was a bit of a battle as well. But yeah, it's our real first test, I think. Which is going to be intriguing.
Yeah, happy to have the 2, I guess, easy wins, if you want to call it that. 2 wins that most people would have predicted us to have to start the season. And this was one that we kind of highlighted in our preseason podcasts about being a watch, because question marks on Melbourne and how we would start. And yeah, they've started quite well, surprising to me. They seem to have got the job done. Who did they play last week? So they played Hawthorn.
Yeah, they played Hawthorn. No, they played Hawthorn just this last weekend.
Yeah, and who did they play before
Oh,
that?
the week before, the Bulldogs, they won by 7.
Bulldogs, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
7 goals. Yeah.
yeah, good win against the Bulldogs. How much weight that'll carry across the whole season, who
I just
knows at this
my
point?
my read on the Bulldogs is completely off at the moment. I don't know. I didn't expect them to
Yeah,
win comfortably, but
I
then
don't rate them
that was at Ballarat
highly.
as well. So I don't know how much to put that on the Gold Coast either, because Ballarat's a
Yeah,
weird place to play footy, and the Bulldogs generally do okay down there. So yeah,
yeah.
that's neither
I
here nor there.
guess
But
I guess for mine, I think we're a lot more of a settled team at the moment. Obviously, they've got a very key out, but I think they still have, although they've won their 2 games quite handsomely. Um, if it's not Ben Brown, they don't have a key forward. Outside of that, Van Rooyen definitely has impressed in his early start to his career. Um, they're bringing Petty back, or has he already come back? One of the two. So on the defensive end, they've probably got coverage for May, but they're probably going up against 3 forwards who are all in the goals as of yesterday. So look, a home ground advantage would count for something. It's going to be a slog, you would imagine. And look, whether we win or lose, I don't know how much perception would change, maybe depending on the degree of the
yeah,
win or the loss. If we win, though, I kind of feel like it's a bit of not a lose-lose, but the closest thing to a lose. Like if we win, I think just the nature of Port over the last few years is that everyone kind of expects us to be there and thereabouts, but everyone reserves judgment until finals time. And so, look, I hope we win. I hope we keep the ball rolling, and I think we're in a good spot to win. Um, but it is a test, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see
yeah,
how we react to it.
yeah. My one thing that I wanted to bring into the discussion for this week is, like, I'm really intrigued by the midfield battle. Obviously, last year was a real, as I mentioned, talking about Butters before. He had a real highlight game against Melbourne last year in that Friday night match in the rain. I think he got three Brownlow votes for that one, and just an incredible game. And particularly with Melbourne having a couple of midfield stars in the likes of Petrarca. Obviously, Petrarca's just a side note. Sometimes when you go to the footy, like, I know you obviously you go to games. I remember the first time I went and saw Petrarca in person, and he was like warming up. And because I got there pretty early, and he was warming up, like kicking for goal from like kind of the boundary 50 there, right in front of near our seats are there, and Sec Bay 140. Geez, that guy's a fucking unit. Like, he's just huge. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But the midfield
It's
battle
part
is
of the Red Bull Academy with
yeah,
Travis Spoke.
yeah. Yeah, so he must be a decent bloke at least. But yeah,
Yeah.
he does seem like it. I do like Petrarca as just
Yeah.
like a completely from a neutral perspective. I do like him as a player, and seems like a good bloke. But yeah, like the midfield battle is going to be it's our first real test as far as our ever evolving new movement in our midfield. You know, last year was the real movement forward to the Rosie and Butters, and it'll be interesting to see if they seem to think they seem to get the idea that Horn Francis wasn't a serious worry last week, but I wouldn't want them
Yeah.
to push him either. So that'll be interesting to see if he comes in. But either way, we saw this week, and as we've given plaudits to Ollie Wines in our votes and our discussion of this week's game, could be a great game for him to if he is needed to play a similar role this week, like for him to show that he can mix it up with the best, and obviously in the mix with Butters and Rosie and co, and in that battle with them. So that's really I'm really like, I loved last year's game against them, and seeing the kind of that battle in the guts there, and that's really my thing to watch this week, is like how our midfield matches up with what is, even if we're still not unsure what this 2024 iteration of Melbourne is, to see there's still some pretty big stars in that midfield. Obviously, Clary and Petrarca and co. It's going to be interesting to see. And it's a really good early test for us, I think.
Yeah. And that's why we love football, right? It's two highly talented midfields coming up against one another, and they're going to have moments. We're going to have moments, and yeah, from a neutral point of view, it's enough to whet the appetite. I would have thought the contest will be real in the middle. It'll be interesting to see how Soldo comes up against a highly talented Max Gawn. I doubt that we'll try and go the way that Sydney went with the kind of two-ruck setup, especially because Finlayson ended up kicking a few goals. So, yeah, just want to see Ivan put a stamp on the game early and kind of, again, use his attributes and, yeah, use them to good effect. So I'm excited. Even if Horn Francis doesn't come back in, we've got the coverage for him, as we showed on the weekend. And if we need someone to do a job, we can put Drew back in the guts and shift the magnets a little bit. So, yeah, I think the way Ken likes to do it though is see how the opposition start and then make a call on doing a job.
Yeah.
Which in round 3 I can kind of get, but it's good to know that we actually have someone who can do a job. But hopefully we're dominating and more making them think about what jobs they need to do on us. And like I said before, you can only really blanket one person, and good luck stopping the rest of them.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting prospect from a football perspective, an overall football perspective. Yeah. Moving on to me.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So my thing to watch, or the thing that I'm looking towards this weekend, is our slow starts, I guess you could categorize it. So the first quarter against West Coast was a bit of a slog, and not going back on my word about it being round 1, it was round 1, but it was a slog, and we made it look a bit difficult at times, although we clearly ran away with the rest of the game in round 1. Coming into Richmond, our first half left a lot to be desired, and against the good sides, you don't want to find yourself coming back from a large margin. You don't have to bridge that gap. It takes up a lot of energy, and it's time to actually put a stamp on the game early. And in last year's game against Melbourne, we were the ones who actually dominated that first half. But as is the theme, we didn't put our opportunities away and only found ourselves up by 14 points at halftime while having the clear dominance. And then as a result, they hit back hard in the third quarter, banging on 7 goals, and we had to mount some fight back from then. Great finish to the game, and you've said that you've watched it multiple times, the replay of the game against Melbourne last year. But I guess it's what happened in that game. I don't want to see happen again. I want to see us actually at home in front of what should be a great crowd on a Saturday night, put the foot down early and gain some ascendancy, and then build off that for the rest of the game. Like I said, they're going to have moments. We're going to have moments, but do the right stuff early so that we're not chasing tail throughout the match and having to mount a sizable comeback.
Yeah, because we have had this as an issue. Probably it has been not always a theme, but it has bubbled up here and there over the years. Like there has been trends, months here and there that we do just have a month where we end up winning games at the starts are slow every game, and we have to fight our way into games, and whereas we've had games against good teams where whether it be going up to the Gabba or going to Collingwood last year. I mean, we started okay against Collingwood, but then they quickly got ahead of us, and by halftime we're out of the game basically.
And then it unraveled. Yeah,
yeah. Like we've been spanked out of games early in a couple of times. Thankfully not too many times, but it has happened. And it'll be nice to do that to another team at some point. And I even remember a couple of years ago we ended up beating Carlton by I think 100 odd points. But at some point during the second quarter, we were down by 2 or 3 goals, and we kicked like 18 goals straight after that, and
I remember speaking about that. Yeah, they threw everything at us early.
Yeah, which is and that's the nature of footy. Sometimes is like the kitchen sink gets thrown at you because of the team, but being Melbourne are not going to be there in a different place than obviously that Carlton side was at the time. So that's what you want to see is just we want to try to take the initiative a bit earlier because I do think you did mention like sometimes we do seem to be see what the other side has given us and then react and not react to it, but also we're kind of playing a little bit of a game of chess. But sometimes you do against the better sides, you do need to take your opportunities early and start a little bit better. So yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how we start this one because it has been as much as we've both discussed it repeatedly over the last couple of weeks. We're really happy with how the results have ended up, but the way they've gotten there has been an intriguing journey, which has brought about a lot of discussion. And as much as we will be, positive and critical about it at times, it's like we do agree that the slow starts do need. We'd love to start better, and against decent opposition this week. Night game, Saturday night game, because the first two, we've had Sunday games the first 2 rounds of the year. This is our first real good primetime game this year as well. So it's an opportunity to put on a show, set the Saturday night up early for the punters. They're going to head out to the casino and other various watering holes of Adelaide afterwards. I love a Saturday night game. I miss that.
Yeah.
But
it's an ideal setup.
Yeah. So
being so close.
Yeah, to set it up well would be to start well as well. So
yeah, look, I'm confident of a win. And if we do, I don't think it'll be any more than single digits, much like last year. For all that I've said about having a good start or whatnot, just these games, although being round 3 could kind of shift it one way or the other for whatever reason. But my prediction is that being at home and with the balance that we appear to have in our team, I think that a win would be no more than 10 points. That's probably the range that I probably expect. And again, if it's any more than that, then I'll be pleasantly surprised and content.
Yeah, I'll be a little bit more bullish and say that I'm at around the 4 goal mark. That's just, but I just tend to think optimistic.
4 goals.
Yeah, I'm going with 4 goals. It'll be interesting to see if we come back and see where we're at. At when we do this time next week. But
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I guess as much as there is the questions about periods of our play this year, it's when we have turned it on. I've been really impressed so far this year. So I'm just hoping that there's more of that this week than the obviously the first half this week or whatever. But yeah, when we turn it on, obviously the start to the second half this week, in the Richmond game in the fourth quarter, we're just
just keep going with that.
We
going with that.
When we get clinical and kind of just brutal and just and turn it on like Jason Voorhees walking into a campsite, just like we just start swinging a machete and just go like.
This is the overall test for Port. It's a kind of just a fraction of what our opinions are later in the season. Is come into the game, stamp your authority, and be mentally ready, be mentally there for it.
Yeah,
in a big game.
Yeah, and that's been a theme, I guess, in some of the big games over the years. Has been like, what is the mentality going into it? So, which wraps into your slow starts as well. So, yeah, I'm really excited for it. I'm nervous for it because it is genuinely the first match I go into. Like the first 2 weeks this year, I was pretty confident that we were going to win the games. Like I wasn't, obviously the Richmond game at times had those moments where you're like, oh shit, this could get away from us. But overall, you knew we were the better side the first couple of weeks, and it's just like we had to just find our way into the game, and we ended up doing that. This is the first game I go into thinking we're up against a decent side, and we need to be at our absolute best. Even if it's a footy game, you're not always at your best 100% of the time, but we need to be pretty close to it as much as we could possibly can be, because they've had a decent start to the season. So it is the first game of the year that I've got those footy fan nerves that you do going to a week.
Yeah. On Saturday, my nerves will be jangling as well.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, so it's going to be a fun one, and I'm excited for it. It's at 1:30 Saturday morning my time. It's going to be fun. It's the first sleepless night of the year because it's fun. Like the first couple of games have been 10 p.m. my time, so it's like you can watch it, and then even last night I watched the end of it, then watched the first half on replay. got to sleep around 3 a.m. I still got some sleep. The 1:30, 2:30 starts, if they're a close game, if they finish, 5:30-ish, and then you're jacked because of whatever's happened. You're either angry and you can't sleep for a while, or you're happy and you can't sleep for a while, and then the sun starts coming up, and it's just it fucks your whole Saturday.
Yeah,
But
I
I
know that
wouldn't.
all too well.
Yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way because I love this club, and that's just what you do. That's just what you do.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
Yeah. Should be
Anyway,
good. I look forward to speaking about it next week.
yeah,
Hopefully on the positive side of the ledger.
yeah, this time next week, hopefully our tones are very similar, and we're pretty happy and we're struggling to fit guys into our top 5 and all that fun stuff, and have plenty of positives to talk about.
Absolutely.
But it's going to be a fun one. It's why we do this. As much as we hate being in close games when we're in them, the reason you're a sports the reason you're a sports fan is for these kind of things. So, and yeah, it's our first big test of the season. Anyway, thank you, Jamie, as always. It's been a fun podcast.
No worries.
It's there's nothing more to say than calm the pair, and I'll chat to you next week, and hopefully another 4 points in the bag.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. Thanks for listening, guys. And yeah, keep interacting with us on socials. It's great stuff to talk about. And it's great to see everyone else's opinions and who's listening and who's engaging. It's great. So yeah. See you again this time next week.
Yep. I will add on to it. I completely forgot to plug it all because it's 1:45 in the morning here. But yeah, there's some stuff in the store at the moment for TB350 if you're interested in it. And that's about it. Linktree and the profiles and the socials and all that stuff. If you just go to the social links on either Instagram or Twitter. I assume if you're listening to this, you're probably following on one of those networks or Facebook. You'll find the links.
Yeah,
that's about
if you
it.
know a Port fan, reference them over.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your enemies. Who cares? It's all good.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Might as well. You'll breach some gaps, and you might find some common ground. We're all about that here. All right. Anyway, that's about it. Now we'll finish the podcast. Calm the pair.
Go the power.